I remember the smell. Not the beer, that was cheap and flat. Not the puke, that came later. I remember the smell of burnt copper, like a penny left on a hot sidewalk, mixed with something sweet, like rotten watermelon. That smell never left my car, even after I pressure washed the upholstery, even after I sold it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. It was September 12th, 2018, a Tuesday, because of course it was. My buddy Maya and I were at a dive bar called the Rusty Nail, 2 towns over from where we lived in a place called Pine Hollow. We'd been there for 4 hours, and I was on my 7th beer. Maya was on her 3rd, but she was a lightweight, and by midnight she was already swaying. I said, "Bro, we should head back." She said, "I'm gonna hurl." I laughed, because that's what you do when your friend is about to throw up. You laugh and pretend it's funny. I wasn't supposed to drive, I knew that, but Maya was really sick, and the only other option was to call my mom, and that would have been worse than a DUI. So I grabbed her keys. She was too drunk to walk, and I shoved her into the passenger seat of my 2005 Toyota Camry. The left armrest on my gaming chair back home is broken, so I always lean right, but that's not relevant. What's relevant is that my Camry had a cracked stereo display that only showed the time, and the time was always wrong. It was stuck at 3:03 a.m. for the last 3 years. I didn't think about that. I started the engine, pulled out, and we took the back road, Old Mill Road, the one with no streetlights and a bunch of telephone poles that haven't been updated since the 90s. Maya rolled down her window, stuck her head out, and let the wind hit her face. She was gasping, I'm gonna. And I said, just hold it, we're almost home. But we weren't. I was doing maybe 45 on a road that curves. I didn't see the wire. There was a telephone pole on the right, and the tension wire, the steel cable that anchors the pole to the ground, had sagged low, maybe 3 feet above the road. It was dark and my headlights were dim, and I was so focused on not swerving into a ditch that I didn't notice the glint of metal. I heard a thwack, a wet, heavy sound like a baseball bat hitting a pumpkin. Then something hit my window. A spray, red. I swerved, corrected, and kept driving. My heart was pounding, but my brain was too fogged to process. I thought I'd hit a deer. I thought a branch had scraped the car. I thought anything but the truth. I drove the remaining 10 minutes home, parked in my driveway, and stumbled inside. I crashed onto my bed, still in my jeans, and fell asleep instantly. I didn't check the passenger seat. I didn't see Maya. I didn't see the headless body slumped against the door. I didn't hear the drip of blood hitting the floor mat. I just slept. I woke up at 9 a.m. Sunlight stabbed through my blinds, and my head was a jackhammer. I groaned, rolled over, and reached for my phone. No messages from Maya. That was weird. She always texts me after a night out, usually with a meme about how hungover she is. I sent her a text. You alive? No reply. I walked to the bathroom, splashed water on my face, and looked in the mirror. There was a tiny red speck on my cheek. I wiped it off, thought it was a pimple. Then I smelled it. That burnt copper smell, rotting watermelon. It was coming from the hallway, from the front door. I walked to the living room, opened the front door, and looked at my car. It was parked perfectly, like always, but the windshield had a crack. No, not a crack, a smear. A smear of red, and something stuck to the wiper blade. A piece of fabric, gray fabric. Maya's favorite hoodie. My stomach dropped. I walked to the car, my legs heavy, and peered into the window. The driver's seat was empty. The passenger seat was empty too. But there was a dark stain on the upholstery, spreading from the seat to the floor, and a pool of dark liquid on the mat. And on the dashboard, right below the cracked stereo display, was a single finger. A finger severed cleanly with a silver ring on it, Maya's ring. I screamed. I stumbled back, vomited into my bushes, and then I forced myself to look again. The finger was real. The blood was real. But where was the rest of her? I opened the passenger door, and the smell hit me like a wall. I saw the seatbelt. It was still buckled, but the buckle was covered in blood. And the headrest. The headrest was gone. I looked at the back seat. Nothing. Then I looked at the rearview mirror, the one that was always slightly crooked, because I'd bumped it when I was cleaning the car. and I saw a reflection of the back seat. But the reflection wasn't empty. There was a face, Maya's face, but her eyes were closed, and her expression was peaceful, like she was sleeping. And her head, it was resting on the back seat, perfectly upright, as if someone had placed it there. I spun around. The back seat was empty. I looked at the mirror again. The reflection showed the head clear as day. I ran inside, grabbed my phone, and called Maya's number. It went straight to voicemail. I called the police, but I couldn't speak. I just hung up. I sat on my couch, my hands shaking, and I remembered the thwack, the wire, the spray. Oh, bro, we are so cooked. I didn't kill a deer. I killed my friend. And her head was still in my car, in a mirror that only I could see. I didn't call the police. I couldn't. Not with a severed head and a missing body. I thought maybe I was hallucinating. Maybe the alcohol had fried my brain, and the gummy I'd eaten earlier, it was just CBD, but who knows? Maybe it had been laced. So I drove to the hospital, got my blood drawn, and waited. The results came back clean. No drugs, no alcohol. It had worn off. I was sober. But the head was still there. Every time I looked at the rearview mirror, Maya's face stared back at me. Her eyes were open now, wide, unblinking, and her lips were moving. She was whispering something, but I couldn't hear it. I drove to the spot where the accident happened. Old Mill Road, the telephone pole. The wire was still sagging, and at its base there was a patch of dried blood and a few strands of hair. I knelt and picked up a strand. It was blonde like Maya's. And that's when I saw the dash cam. I'd forgotten I had one, a cheap one I'd bought off Amazon a year ago. I pulled the SD card, rushed home, and plugged it into my laptop. The footage from that night, I watched it. At 1:23 a.m., I see myself driving, laughing, Maya leaning out the window. At 1:24, the wire appears, and I see it catch her neck. I see her head jerk back, then fly forward, hitting the windshield, and then it rolls onto the back seat. The body slumps into the passenger seat. But here's the thing. The dashcam timestamp at the bottom says 13th of August 2011, 3:03 a.m., not September 12th, 2018, 2011, and 3:03, the same time my stereo display is stuck on. I replayed it. The timestamp didn't change. I checked the file's metadata. It was recorded on a device that wasn't even manufactured in 2011, but the footage was real. And at the very end, just before I parked, the camera caught a reflection in the rearview mirror. And in that reflection, Maya's head was smiling, and she pointed at the camera and mouthed something. I slowed it down, frame by frame. Her lips formed two words, "Find the body." But the body wasn't in my car. It had vanished. The police later searched my car and found nothing. No blood, no finger, no stain. They said I was delusional. They took my keys. But they didn't take my mirror. And every night at 3:03 a.m. I see Maya's head in that mirror. She whispers, "You forgot to stop." I don't know what she means, but I think I'm starting to figure it out. It took me 3 days to understand. I went back to the bar, the Rusty Nail, and asked the bartender if he remembered that night. He said, "Yeah, you and Maya were here, but Maya left at 11 p.m. She took a cab. You stayed until 2 a.m. and drove home alone." "Alone?" I said. "She was with me in the car." He shook his head. "No, bro, she left. I saw her get into a yellow taxi." I pulled up my phone. I had a picture of Maya from that night taken at 11:30 p.m. with a timestamp. She was smiling, and she was wearing that gray hoodie. But in the background, I saw the taxi, and the taxi's license plate was the same as the one on my car's rearview mirror. No, that didn't make sense. Then I checked my bank statements. I had paid for a cab that night at 11:45 p.m. A cab from the bar to Maya's house. I had no memory of doing that. I started to wonder, was Maya even in my car? The dash cam showed her, but the bartender said she left. The police found no evidence of her in my car, but I saw her head. I smelled her blood. I felt the thwack. I called Maya's mom. She said Maya had been missing since August 13th, 2011, not 2018, that she'd vanished on the Ghost Festival night, and they'd never found her body. "Wait," I said, 2011? Yes, she said. She was with a friend, a guy named John. They were drunk. He drove her home. They hit a wire. He never stopped. I dropped the phone. I'm not Leo. I'm John. And I didn't drive on September 12th, 2018. That was 2011. I've been stuck in a loop, reliving that night over and over, but each time I forget, and each time I see her head in the mirror whispering. The gummy I took. It was a hallucinogen I bought to cope, but it only made me see the truth. I didn't kill Maya in 2018. I killed her in 2011. I drove home, left her body in the car, and went to sleep. The police found me the next morning. They arrested me. I did 5 years, but I don't remember any of that. I only remember the loop. I looked in my rearview mirror. Maya's head was there and she was crying. She whispered, "You never stopped. You never even looked back." And then she said, "Now it's your turn." I looked at the road. I was back on Old Mill Road at 3:03 a.m. and the wire was in front of me. I was driving again, and Maya was in the passenger seat, leaning out the window, but this time she turned to look at me and she smiled. "Don't stop," she said. I didn't. The wire caught my neck, and I'm still driving. The loop is forever, and I never learn.